The deepest battles are the ones no one sees. Welcome to the paradox within.
The real reason you can't make close friends. Have you ever looked around and wondered why everyone else seems to have people they can call at 2 a.m. while your conversations never seem to go beyond small talk? Maybe people like you, maybe they laugh at your jokes, maybe they even call you a friend, but somehow you always feel like you're standing just outside the circle. Visual, person sitting alone in a cafe while groups talk in the background. You start asking yourself uncomfortable questions. Am I boring? Am I too quiet? Is there something wrong with me? But what if the real reason has nothing to do with your personality and everything to do with the way your brain learned to stay safe? Because sometimes the greatest obstacle to friendship isn't rejection, it's protection. Problem deep dive. Most people think friendships happen naturally. You meet someone, you spend time together, you become close, simple. But if you've spent years feeling disconnected, you know it doesn't work like that. You can spend months talking to someone and still feel like they don't actually know you. You answer questions, you smile, you listen, you remember birthdays, you help when they're struggling, yet when you go home, there's a strange emptiness like you spent hours with people without being seen. Visual empty room with sunlight falling across the floor. This isn't because you're incapable of connection. It's because connection asks for something your brain may have learned to avoid. Vulnerability, not dramatic vulnerability, not telling strangers your deepest secrets. Just the tiny moments where another person gets to see the real you. Psychologists sometimes describe friendship as a gradual exchange of emotional risk. One person shares something slightly personal, the other responds safely. Trust grows, then both people share a little more, like climbing a staircase down one small step at a time. But if your brain believes emotional exposure is dangerous, you stop climbing after the first step without even realizing it. You stay polite, interesting, helpful, funny, reliable, everything except visible. And people can't become close to someone they never truly meet. Visual, staircase fading into soft light. What's fascinating is that many people who struggle with close friendships are actually socially skilled. They know how to keep conversations going. They know how to make others comfortable. Sometimes they're the easiest people to talk to because they've become experts at focusing on everyone else. The conversation always returns to the other person's life, their problems, their dreams, their feelings. Meanwhile, your own inner world stays carefully hidden. At first, this feels generous, but over time, it quietly creates distance. Because intimacy isn't built by impressing people, it's built through mutual emotional exchange. This pattern often begins long before adulthood, maybe growing up. Being emotional made things worse. Maybe mistakes were criticized. Maybe vulnerability was ignored. Maybe you learned that being easy was the safest role. So your nervous system adapted it. It stopped asking, will they understand me? And started asking, how do I avoid becoming a burden? That single shift changes everything, including friendship. Reframe. Here's the part most people never hear. This doesn't mean you're broken, it means your brain became incredibly good at protecting you. Protection is one of the brain's oldest jobs. Long before humans worried about careers or social media or popularity, our brains were trying to answer one question: what keeps me safe? If openness once led to embarrassment, criticism, or emotional pain, your brain remembers not as a story, but as a prediction. Every new friendship becomes another situation where history might repeat itself. So instead of saying, let's connect, your nervous system whispers, let's stay careful on that visual, abstract brain animation with protective barriers. The painful part is that this strategy works. You avoid rejection, you avoid awkwardness, you avoid looking needy, but you also avoid being deeply known. It's like living inside a beautiful house with every door locked. Nothing dangerous gets in, but neither does anyone else. Protection and loneliness begin to look almost identical, and because this happens automatically, you mistake it for personality. You say, I'm just introverted, I'm just awkward. I've always been like this. Maybe, but personality isn't the whole story. Sometimes what feels permanent is simply an old survival strategy that never got updated. Psychological mechanism. So, what is actually happening inside the brain? Imagine your brain as an airport security system. Its job isn't to make your life meaningful, its job is to detect possible danger. Most of the time, that system works quietly. But if past experiences taught it that emotional closeness can hurt, it starts treating intimacy like suspicious luggage. Not because friendship is dangerous, because uncertainty is. Visual, slow moving security scanner transforming into brain imagery. Neuroscientists know that the brain constantly predicts future outcomes based on past experience. This process is called predictive processing. Your brain isn't simply reacting to the present, it's guessing what will happen next. If previous closeness ended with disappointment, your prediction becomes, this probably won't end well. That prediction changes your behavior before anything even happens. You hesitate before texting. You overthink invitations. You replay conversations. You delete messages before sending them. You assume people are losing interest without evidence. These aren't random habits. They're protective predictions. Here's another mental model. Imagine carrying a backpack. Every painful relationship adds another stone. One stone for betrayal, one for criticism, one for feeling ignored. Eventually, you're carrying so much weight that every new friendship feels exhausting before it even begins. The friendship isn't heavy, the backpack is. Visual, person carrying an invisible backpack that slowly fills with stones. Behavioral psychology shows something similar. When avoidance reduces anxiety, the brain rewards avoidance. You decide not to reach out. Your anxiety immediately drops. Your brain thinks, excellent, that worked. So next time, it repeats the same strategy. This creates a loop. Avoid. Feel temporary relief. Become lonelier. Need connection more. Fear rejection even more. Avoid again. Without realizing it, you're trapped inside a cycle your brain believes is keeping you alive. Practical framework. Breaking that cycle doesn't require becoming outgoing. It requires teaching your brain that closeness can be safe again. Not perfectly safe, just safe enough. Step 1. Share. 1 degree more than feels comfortable. Don't tell your life story. Simply reveal one small, genuine detail. Maybe admit you're nervous about something. Maybe mention something you're genuinely excited about. Maybe say, I've actually been thinking about this a lot. Why does this work? Because the brain updates predictions through new experiences. Every safe moment of honesty becomes evidence that the world isn't exactly like the past. Visual notebook with one sentence written. Small honesty creates new evidence. Imagine a coworker asking how your weekend was. Instead of saying, fine, you say, I've been trying to get back into reading. It's harder than I expected. It's small, but it's real. That's where closeness begins. Step 2. Stop performing perfect. Many people unknowingly treat conversations like interviews. They try to sound interesting, funny, knowledgeable, always positive. But perfection creates distance. Authenticity creates familiarity. Social psychology repeatedly shows that people often trust those who appear genuinely human rather than flawlessly impressive. Your brain fears imperfection because it predicts rejection. But small imperfections actually signal safety. Visual, cracked ceramic cup with golden repair lines. For example, forgetting a word, laughing at yourself, admitting you don't know something. Those moments often increase warmth, not decrease it. Step 3. Let curiosity replace mind reading. When someone replies late, what story does your brain tell? They're losing interest. They don't like me. I said something wrong. But those are predictions, not facts. Instead, they replace certainty with curiosity. Maybe they're busy. Maybe they're overwhelmed. Maybe nothing happened at all. Why does this help? Because anxiety loves certainty. Curiosity interrupts automatic threat predictions and gives the thinking brain space to evaluate reality instead of assumptions. Visual, 2 paths, one labeled assumption, the other curiosity. Step 4. Build repetition before intensity. Many people wait for a magical conversation that instantly creates friendship. Real friendships usually grow differently. Repeated ordinary moments, walking together after work, weekly gym sessions, sending the occasional meme, talking for 5 minutes after class. The brain develops trust through familiarity. Psychologists call this the mere exposure effect. Repeated positive contact increases comfort, not because every interaction is extraordinary, but because consistency reduces uncertainty. Visual, calendar pages turning slowly while two figures continue meeting. Friendship isn't one giant leap, it's hundreds of tiny returns. Integration. If you remember only one thing, remember the locked house. For years, you may have believed loneliness came from nobody knocking, but maybe people did knock, quietly, patiently. Your brain simply learned to keep the doors closed because that's what once kept you safe. The goal isn't throwing every door open overnight, it's unlocking one room at a time, every honest sentence, every imperfect moment, every repeated interaction, every curious question instead of fearful assumption. Each one tells your nervous system, we survived this. Then something remarkable happens. Your brain slowly rewrites its own predictions, not through motivation, not through positive thinking, through experience, because the brain believes evidence, more than advice. Visual, locked door slowly opening to warm natural light. Quiet, empowering close. Maybe you've spent years believing you were difficult to know, or somehow less worthy of close friendships than everyone else. But perhaps the real story is much quieter. You became so skilled at protecting yourself that protection started looking like who you are. And those are not the same thing. Your identity is not your defense mechanism. Friendship doesn't begin when you become more impressive. It begins when your nervous system slowly learns that being seen is no longer the same as being unsafe. Visual waves moving slowly toward the shore at sunset. The people who become closest to you won't remember your perfect words. They'll remember the moments you were simply real. And maybe the next close friendship in your life won't begin with a life-changing conversation. Maybe it'll begin with one honest sentence that your younger self never believed was safe enough to say.